Okay, let's try to unpack this. Imagine a country, right? One previously known mostly for, well, chronic chaos, deep divisions.
Yeah, that's the common picture.
Now, fast forward to 2066, and picture that same country as a global beacon, radiating peace, fostering abundance, a real hub of innovation. I mean, how does a nation even start to make that kind of transformation?
It seems almost improbable, doesn't it? Especially when you think about where things stood, not so long before that.
Exactly.
And that leap, that seemingly impossible journey, is precisely the narrative we're diving into today.
Absolutely. So this deep dive, it's based on preview excerpts we have from a book, maybe an audiobook, titled Brazil 2066, The Giant of the South Awakens.
Right.
It presents a really specific, quite detailed vision of a possible future for Brazil. And it's drawn directly from the source material that was shared with us.
And our mission today really is to journey through this. Well, this compelling narrative of radical transformation. We want to understand the key moments, the driving forces the author points to as being absolutely critical. We'll pay, I think, particular attention to those years 2025 and 2026. They're highlighted as the turning point.
Right.
And we'll try to extract what insights this vision offers, about societal change, technology's role, and, well, human potential.
And right from the start, the prologue gives you this glimpse of 2066. It describes a state where peace isn't just like an aspiration, but, as the source puts it, the air they breathe.
Powerful phrasing.
Yeah. And abundance isn't wealth at the top. It's described as a shared harvest. Brazil is seen radiating a kind of light, leading globally not through dominance, but harmony, ingenuity.
A different kind of leadership model.
Totally. It's depicted as a major economic force, a key reference point in the Southern Hemisphere, showing what the author calls a weary planet, a new way to live.
It's a potent image, and it gets even more potent when you contrast it with the starting point the book describes.
Let's go there then. Because the material paints a really vivid picture of Brazil before all this. Specifically, the state of things just 4 decades prior, around 2025. How different was it, according to this vision?
Well, the description is one of a country just exhausted. Exhausted by cycles of empty promises, perpetual crises. Living on the verge of collapse wasn't an emergency state. Apparently, it was just the routine.
Right, and the specifics mentioned really hit hard. Interest rates stuck over 13%, inflation just constantly eating away at people's money.
Yeah.
Small entrepreneurs apparently suffocating under layers of bureaucracy. And the youth. The source notes many had kind of stopped dreaming. Their focus was just on surviving day to day.
And you also see this description of systemic decay. Corruption wasn't just a problem, it was like normalized. Public institutions weakened. Politics painted as this polarized, toxic, gladiatorial arena.
Oof.
Yeah, stripped of credibility, where each election, it says, brought a new fear, not hope.
And that neglect showed up in really tangible ways mentioned in the material, didn't it? Public hospitals practically abandoned, teachers fighting against under-resourced, outdated education systems, and just grim safety statistics. A pervasive sense of fear, and even areas where the state's presence felt, well, basically non-existent.
But the gravest issue the source identifies wasn't just the visible chaos, it was internal, this deep sense of resignation. Yeah, hopelessness had really settled in. The feeling that change just wasn't possible. Captured in that phrase, Brazil is just like that, described as echoing like a life sentence.
Wow. And yet, even amidst all that, the material hints at something else stirring underneath. A quiet, persistent restlessness, it calls it. A creative dissatisfaction, like the soul of the country refused to fully give up.
Exactly. It sets the stage perfectly. It's the darkness before the dawn, as you said.
Which brings us then to the turning point. The prologue explicitly mentions these crucial years of 2025 and 2026. That's when the seeds of this bold revolution took root.
And this vision identifies the agents of that initial shift as the heralds of change.
Okay.
The source describes how this quiet whisper started building into, well, a roar. And importantly, it came from young voices.
Young voices.
Restless, creative, and crucially, the source says, genuine. They weren't emerging from the usual corridors of power or influence.
Right, not the establishment figures.
No, exactly. They came far from the spotlight, from favelas using social media smartly, from universities, cultural collectives, independent labs. These were young people who'd grown up in the chaos of 2025 and just decided to build meaning from it. The source notes they didn't necessarily have famous names or political ties, but they had something vital. Purpose.
And they also had tools that maybe previous generations didn't have, or at least not as widespread. Access to information, decentralized communication.
Research.
And as the source really emphasizes, a critical element arrived from 2025 onward, the emergence of an accessible, collaborative, and finally useful artificial intelligence.
Yeah, that AI piece seems key. And the material gives specific examples, like Anna Clara, a public school math teacher. Her videos went viral, teaching logic, critical thinking.
Wow,
And she leveraged a personalized AI tutor she actually built herself using open source code.
incredible.
Or Gustavo, former call center worker, leading a microcredit movement in communities ignored by banks using smart contracts, blockchain, secure, transparent digital agreements.
What's really striking about these early actors, the way it's described, is their method. They didn't wait for permission, did they?
No, not at all. They just started doing what needed to be done. And their authenticity, it seems, resonated deeply when truth felt so scarce. It won over hearts tired of empty promises. Yeah, the inspiration came from concrete action, from local projects making a real difference. Connections grew organically. Networks bypassed old hierarchies. Ideas spread fast because people trusted the source. Fellow citizens acting, not some institution. Collaboration apparently started overtaking competition.
And the source calls this whole process the awakening of a new national imagination. That's quite a phrase.
It is no longer paralyzed by fear, but energized by just trying things.
Yeah.
Boldly.
And this movement seems to have gained critical momentum with what the source calls the digital dawn. Around 2025-2026, the convergence of distributed AI and decentralized media, the material calls this the turning point.
Right. For decades, the source suggests Brazil was kind of hostage to narrative monopolies, concentrated media, opaque algorithms fueling
The
polarization.
usual suspects.
Pretty much. But the shift didn't come from the capital or the financial centers. It emerged, it says, from the cloud, digital peripheries, small creative labs.
And this idea of liberating AI seems really central here. As costs dropped, AI wasn't just some corporate thing. It became accessible. Low-cost smartphones, libraries, schools.
Yeah. And the initial curiosity using it for recipes, schedules, whatever, quickly evolved. People started training their own AI.
Their own AIs. How so?
Well, training them with their local data, using their regional dialects, reflecting their community's specific needs and priorities.
Okay.
The source gives examples like a collective of mothers in Maranham building an AI to help understand medical exams, navigate the public health system, SUS.
That's practical empowerment.
Totally. Or farmers in Pará training models with homemade sensors for microclimates, harvests, students in underserved areas creating personalized tutors for entrance exams, but with local accents, making it relatable.
So AI became less abstract, more like a community tool.
Exactly, a tool for popular empowerment. And alongside this, you had decentralized media platforms emerging, using encryption, community validation.
Bypassing the gatekeepers.
Right. Local journalism got a boost. Silenced narratives found a voice. And trust, critically, was restored, not in big institutions, but in these living, human, and transparent networks.
So you could have like corruption reports backed by blockchain verified documents, things like that.
Precisely. Public policy debated in huge digital assemblies. That old dynamic elite speaks, people listen, it was shattered. Everyone, it seems, found a voice, found a platform.
And the source makes a point to highlight when technology met the Brazilian soul. It wasn't just the tech itself.
No, it was how Brazilians used it. Creatively, welcomingly, maybe a bit chaotically, but humanly.
Yeah.
AI apparently learned to dance faro, recite Cordell poetry, translate emotions into local slang. It wasn't cold. It became, as the source says, a new mirror of our identity.
That's fascinating. So this digital dawn, it didn't just bring solutions, it sparked new dreams.
That's the idea. A population that had been cynical started seeing itself as active shapers of the future. Brazil, in this vision, began to, well, reprogram itself.
That internal reprogramming then sets the stage for the ongoing transformation described later, starting with healing the heart of the nation, the moral reset of politics.
Yeah, the core wound identified was that broken trust between people and the state. Decades of corruption, polarization, it had taken its toll.
The source points to scandals in mid-2025 as a kind of collapses catalyst.
Exactly. Leading to this widespread breakdown of credibility. Even loyal voters felt orphaned, adrift.
And in that vacuum, instead of just more chaos, something else emerged. Emergent civic pacts, people's assemblies popping up in hundreds of cities.
Connected through these decentralized platforms, auditable ones.
Right, so politics discredited and decaying, was kind of forced into a moral reboot from the ground up.
And this paved the way for new representatives, new codes. Hundreds of independent leaders emerged, not from the usual political class.
But from where?
Education, health, innovation, social movements, traditional communities, they came with clear proposals, collective agendas, and crucially, no ties to the old party structures.
Clean slate.
Yeah, transparent campaigns, crowd-funded, debated openly online, coherence over charisma, plans over slogans. And they won, apparently because the population was just ready for something fundamentally different.
So voting itself changed. It became, as the source puts it, the return of the citizen. Less resignation, more co-creation.
That's the picture painted. Laws debated openly before Congress, participatory budgets, AI used for real-time oversight, spotting inefficiency, corruption. A new kind of political literacy developed, one that integrated ethics, tech, emotion, reason.
Wow.
Democracy, the source claims, reinvented from the base, from the root, from the people. The heart of the nation started beating again.
Okay, so with this revitalized politics, built on trust, participation, they needed a direction, right? A vision.
Yes, exactly. That's where the 2066 Vision Pact comes in, described as this collective commitment, unifying people across regions, ideologies.
Around one question, yeah.
Basically, what kind of Brazil do we want to celebrate 100 years from 1966? Forged in assemblies, virtual gatherings, intergenerational dialogues, a shared map of intentions.
Not a law then, but a pact.
Yeah, a living pact. And the source outlines 5 pillars at its core.
Okay, what were they?
First, regeneration over growth. Shifting focus, judging economic models by environmental balance, well-being, sustainability, not just GDP.
Makes sense. Second,
Distributed intelligence, lifelong education and personalized AI co-pilots becoming a fundamental right. Fostering human-AI partnerships.
third,
Radical inclusion, viewing every policy through an inclusion lens, no one left behind. Integrating wisdom from favelas, indigenous communities into strategy.
important. Fourth,
Trust-based governance. Committing to open public data, transparent AI, co-managing resources with civic councils, decentralized audits.
okay, and the fifth.
Cultural soul at the center, placing art, music, ancestry, storytelling right at the heart of policy. Recognizing diversity as the nation's strength.
5 big pillars.
Yeah.
But the source says the real revolution wasn't the pact itself, but the commitment.
Exactly. No legal enforcement. Its power was involuntary collective commitment. States, cities, schools, companies aligning. It became a moral compass, a rallying point. The question shifted to, how does what I'm doing serve the 2066 vision?
That's a powerful reframe.
It seems so. And that shift was deeply tied to the power of the peripheries, another key theme. The old centralized power logic broke down. Transformations sprouted from the edges, the invisible centers.
Right, so the margins became the engine. Examples like community labs training AI on local slang.
Yeah, or Northeast fishermen using predictive analytics for their waters.
Yeah.
Amazon indigenous leaders using blockchain to protect territories, market goods transparently. The periphery wasn't just receiving aid. It became this vibrant hub of experimentation. Necessity plus creativity equals agile solutions. No bureaucracy.
And the source says, periphery stopped waiting for inclusion. They claimed authorship, writing their own agendas.
Their own solutions,
Like-
which were often more efficient, dignified, sustainable because they knew their context intimately. Examples like schools opening early for safety, voice AI clinics for the elderly, coops exporting tech. The edge became the new center.
And this wasn't just happening randomly. It was decentralization by design. Infrastructure followed.
That's the idea. Connectivity to remote areas, open source tools and public spaces, policy flowing in reverse, responding to the ground level, city halls partnering with favela collectives, ministries piloting in Quilombola territories, local AI data informing national decisions, a revolution in authorship, recognizing the margins as the beating heart of innovation.
Okay, and hand in hand with this, you have the regenerative revolution starting around 2026, shifting from extraction to regeneration.
Yeah. The catalyst, apparently, was environmental disasters hitting a tipping point. Rivers drying, forests burning, floods, while GDP might still be rising. That contradiction became unbearable. Citizens, especially youth, refused to normalize it.
And knowledge silos broke down. Indigenous knowledge meeting AI.
Exactly. Ancestral knowledge combined with AI, biodesign, regenerative economics. The forest is the future became a platform, not just a slogan. The Amazon as an innovation lab. Drones, sensors for biodiversity restoration. Agroforestry scaled with precision AI. Biomaterials replacing plastic. Kids learning to live with the forest economically and spiritually.
And in cities, too, not just the Amazon.
Oh, yeah. Green rooftops, biofilters, community gardens boosting food security, local commerce. Abandoned lots became biodiversity corridors, circular economy networks, neighborhoods becoming living, breathing ecosystems.
And this spawned a new economy, not just greenwashing.
Apparently not. A nature GDP adopted nationally. Regeneration credits rewarding restoration. Entrepreneurs funding reforestation, water purification, biomimicry. Brazil becoming a leader in exporting regenerative intelligence. The question shifted from how much can we extract to what can we co-create with nature?
Wow. Okay, a foundational piece underneath all this must have been education. The learning to learn section, 2026-2036.
Absolutely critical. Overhauling a system marked by inequality and stagnation.
It started with a philosophical shift. Not what to teach, but how to awaken learners.
Precisely. Curriculum moved from rote memorization to core skills. Critical thinking, emotional intelligence, collaboration, creativity, ethics. Textbooks replaced by adaptive open source platforms. Teachers transformed.
Into what?
Learning designers, curators, mentors, facilitators, and central to this, AI co-tutors. Personalized AI companions for every student, adapting to their pace, style, language, context.
With specific examples, like the math through funk.
Yeah, Anna in Rocinha learning math through funk. João in Goiás exploring biology via local fauna. Kaipo children in Roraima using AI for translation, preserving culture while accessing education. Community input ensuring relevance.
So teachers weren't replaced, they were elevated.
That's the vision. Trained in ethics, neuroscience, pedagogy, co-creating content, salaries reflecting their value. Public schools became community hubs, evenings, makerspaces, wellness, meals. Learning as a shared ritual.
And assessment changed. No more standardized tests dominating.
They faded. Students built portfolios, projects, defined personal missions, graduated with purpose. By 2040, Brazil was a case study in human-centered, AI-augmented learning, the greatest wealth, the quality of minds and hearts.
That investment in people then logically leads to healing the social fabric, starting around 2026, stitching the country together.
Yeah, addressing fragmentation from violence, inequality, neglect. A new political force emerged. The politics of care.
Care is the foundation of civilization.
That was the premise. It translated into reviving the neighborhood, communities organizing around mutual support, neighborhood watches becoming mental health networks, intergenerational gardens, student visits to elders, platforms for domestic worker rights, building an infrastructure for care.
And public policy started listening, designing with people.
Yes. User-centered design for welfare access, transit. Examples like a single mother portal integrating everything, culturally competent centers for refugees using real-time AI translation, reintegration networks for the formerly incarcerated, focusing on support, not stigma. Every life mattered.
And a culture of emotional maturity,
Yeah.
openly discussing trauma, racism, mental health.
Yes. Schools with meditation, restorative justice. Prisons as therapeutic communities, victims co-designing healing protocols. Celebrating culture, ancestry, pluralism, transforming pain into wisdom.
And this was formalized with a Ministry of Care and Connection.
Right. Ensuring no policy ignored emotional, relational impacts. New metrics like an index of human connection, well-being score alongside GDP. Leaders evaluated on reducing suffering, nurturing dignity, making that famous Brazilian street warmth a strategy of state.
Okay, underlying so much of this seems to be the technological embrace in the 2030s, not just adopting tech, but redefining the relationship.
Exactly. Becoming co-creators, a key step. Tech as commons. AI, connectivity, computing power declared public goods. Municipal data trusts governed by citizens. Open source as national infrastructure. Cloud credits for students. COOPs. Shrinking the digital divide.
Democratizing innovation and
Yeah.
adopting a human-AI partnership model.
Yeah, not fearing AI, but integrating it wisely, ethically. Personal intelligence companions, PICs, became a right. Multilingual adaptive assistance for decisions, learning, productivity.
Examples like farmers using PICs for soil trends.
Yes. Or artists co-creating with generative models trained on Brazilian culture. Community leaders using AI simulations for urban planning. All underpinned by a robust ethics framework, transparency, indigenous input, multidisciplinary councils.
And automation, robotics. Did that lead to mass unemployment in this vision?
Apparently not. It led to reinvention. Routine labor augmented, not eliminated. Robots designed to collaborate. Workers rapidly reskilled via immersive neural platforms. New human-centric jobs emerged. AI ethics coaches, robot-human collaboration designers, memory conservationists, biodata healers. Work became more meaningful, flexible, purpose-aligned.
So by 2045, Brazil is positioned as a global tech leader, exporting its own models.
That's the idea. Exporting AI protocols, social tech, regenerative systems, known for warm tech, precision with care, automation with emotion, intelligence with soul. The world looked to Brazil for ethical innovation. They chose to become more human with tech's help. Synergy.
All these threads weave together into the final picture, Brazil of the world by 2066, moving from peripheral nation to a planetary beacon, moral leadership.
Yes, but not through conquest. Through a quiet, powerful presence, transitioning from receiver to contributor. Having healed internally, it had original offerings. Regenerative urbanism, pluralist AI models, the education revolution blueprint, empathy-based foreign policy, making it a trusted mediator.
And becoming a powerful voice of the global south, amplifying, not speaking for.
Exactly. Weaving together voices from Africa, Latin America, Southeast Asia, indigenous nations, hosting summits blending ancestral wisdom and tech, forging alliances based on mutual repair, championing debt forgiveness tied to regeneration, building tech infrastructure with local coups globally, reminding the world the future is co-authored.
But what really captivated the world, the source says, was a nation with a soul, its spirit.
That seems to be the essence. The ability to dance and debate, honor pain without bitterness, laugh without forgetting, embrace tech without losing humanity, bringing back warmth, complexity over polarization, trust over surveillance. Not a superpower, a superpresence. Rooted, plural, wise, the country of the future had finally arrived. Not to dominate, but to remind humanity of its soul.
Wow. The material then wraps up with reflections from 2066. The author looking back as a centenarian, seeing a Brazil few dared dream of decades before. Kids safe, elders sharing wisdom, youth creating, forests preserved, cities intelligent, people feeling whole.
And there's this deep gratitude, not pride, knowing it came from courageous choices made back when everything seemed impossible, around 2025. Remembering those first seeds, the honest youth, the teachers who didn't quit, the caring doctors, the leaders who finally listened.
Remembering how tech reconnected people, how politics recovered his soul, how care became a national value, feeling no fear for the future because new generations kept choosing light. It's written for memory, isn't it? So when darkness comes again, someone remembers. It is possible. It is always possible if we remember who we are and who we can be together.
Powerful words. And the very final section, a message to the next century, speaks directly to us, to you listening, perhaps opening this in 2026 or later. It's presented as both a mirror and a seed.
The vital lessons learned, summed up. Waiting for saviors leads to paralysis. Real progress comes from the collective. Transformation happens when imagination becomes communal.
Yeah, they stopped chasing external formulas and started listening to pain, to the land, to ancestors, to the dreams of the unborn.
The most powerful technology wasn't artificial, it suggests, but the human spirit in communion.
And it acknowledges the path wasn't easy. Hardships, relapses, resistance, regrets. But each time we fell, the source says, we fell forward, learning, until standing up bright felt natural again.
No algorithm predicted it. No foreign report forecasted it. It happened, the author insists, because they remembered who they are.
Challenges remain, even in 2066 climate, AI evolution, expansion. But the most critical frontier is identified as moral, spiritual, the daily choice to build a world of justice, beauty, mutual care.
And that powerful concluding thought for the reader, for you listening, if Brazil, with all its scars and contradictions, could rise like this in this vision, perhaps your people can too. Perhaps you can.
Transformation isn't a miracle from above, it's a movement. It starts from within, locally, collectively. It begins the moment enough people choose to imagine differently.
So that's the incredible journey laid out in the source material you shared with us. Moving from that deep despair of 2025 to the hopeful, innovative, deeply human nation envisioned in 2066.
Yeah, a transformation driven by new leadership, humane tech, a moral reset, collective vision, empowering peripheries, regeneration, reinvented education, and prioritizing care.
It really is a powerful narrative of possibility, isn't it? Thinking about this story, drawn right from the material provided, what stands out most to you listening right now? Does that idea of transformation starting from the edges resonate? Or maybe the concept of tech as a tool for community empowerment and deeper connection?
There are definitely strong recurring themes woven through it all. The sheer power of collective action, the absolute necessity of a bold, shared imagination,
Hmm.
the ethical integration of technology for liberation, not control, and fundamentally redefining national success beyond just GDP towards well-being and care.
And that final message, echoing the author's reflection from 2066, that transformation isn't some miracle. It's a movement. Beginning the moment enough people dare to imagine differently.
It really leaves you with a thought, doesn't it?
It does. What could happen if you, right where you are in your own context, just dare to imagine a fundamentally different future?